Hello, everybody. It's Sunday night. The name of the show is Intuitive Inc., and I am Servette Hassan. We have another great show for you. I'm really excited about this show. Today we have Cate Montana on the line, and she's a writer, an author. She's written Unearthing Venus, My Search for the Woman Within, and she's also co-authored a book called The Heart of the Matter with Dr. Darren Weissman. But that's not why she's here today. She's written a new book called The E-Word, Ego, Enlightenment, and Other Essentials, and it's fascinating. It says some things I haven't heard before, and you know I've been doing this for 1,000 years, so it's very unusual for that to happen. So welcome, Cate. Cate, you're on the line.
Well, thanks, Servette. So glad to be on the show. You've got my curiosity immediately peaked as far as I'm curious. What I wanted to ask you, what was new for you?
What was new for me? Well, it's not new in the concept that I didn't know it, but you explained it better than a lot of people do, because there's a difference between enlightenment and transpersonal beingness. You know, and you explained that very well. You also explained that we really do need the ego, when a lot of writers out there are talking about, get rid of the ego. And as Wayne Dyer said, ego is edging God out. Things like that. And that confuses people a lot. Not that that's bad, but it does confuse people a lot. So, and I could tell when I read the book that you probably did have a degree of some kind in psychology, and you have a master's degree in humanistic psychology. And
that's correct, yes.
Yeah, and that's fascinating. And also, you were a TV, you've been a journalist for almost 35 years, but you've also done TV editing, and you edited the film What the Bleep Do You Know, which I love.
Well, actually, I didn't edit the film. I was the editor of the film's newsletter.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
yeah.
I just gave you credit for.
Mark Vicente would have a cow if they heard this.
All right.
I edited the
We
movie.
will
good.
Correct.
We're all good buds.
We'll correct that. You got very involved in it, though, I'm sure, and you
very involved. And I still, to this day, work with all three of the filmmakers. They're all dear friends of mine, and we all get hooked up into different projects and things together. So it's been a great collaboration for going on, 12 years now.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, I have a question about that too. Did the book come first and then the movie, or did the movie come first and then the book?
The movie came first. Will Arntz basically had been an IT guy, and he was walking the streets in New York one day. Actually, very few people know this story. And he wanted to bring information to the world about the marriage between mysticism and quantum physics science. And so he swore to God and himself that he would dedicate whatever money it took to bring that message to the world. And that's what he did. And then he sat down, and one thing led to another, and probably 4 years later, What the Bleep came out in 2004.
Wow.
And then the book came out after that.
Afterwards, okay. I thought so, because I've seen the movie and read the book. I just wasn't sure if the chicken came first or the egg. So,
right.
Good to know. All right, so here we go, because we only have an hour, which sounds like a long time, and it's not, because this is a big subject, the ego. And we know people with ego, especially right now in our day and time. We're looking at one almost every day. I can't say his name. It's hard to say his name. Anyway, we'll talk about that.
He who shall not be named.
We will not. We won't get into politics right off the bat, but this is a big subject, and I liked how you explained things. As I said, like I know a lot of this because I've been doing it for 100 years, but I liked the fact that you put it down in ways that I think anyone could understand. And this is how in your book you describe the ego. You said, the ego is not who we are. it's a mental program like a computer code, enabling us to function in the world, a sensory code giving us the illusion of individuality, an utterly false, quote, reality, unquote, similar to what's presented in the movie The Matrix. I thought that was a brilliant definition. So, because we do need our ego. We just...
Yes,
right.
We do. So that it's, people ask me, well, what's your definition of the ego? And it's really, really simple. I don't have to get into psychology to talk about it. It's simply our sense of self. It's our unconscious awareness that there's a skin boundary between me and the air and the chair and the person sitting next to me, and that I am me and you are you. And what I think is me is all of the history, all of the experiences, the thoughts, the dreams, the fears, the failures, the successes, my stories that make up who I think I am. Like you asked me, I can say, hi, I'll introduce myself. I'm Cate Montana. I'm a woman. I'm a spiritual person. I'm a writer. I live in Washington State. That's my story. But it's not who I really am. It's the personality, it's the sense of identity that gives me the sense of individualism that enables me to function.
Right.
If I couldn't differentiate myself as myself, I'd be a vegetable.
Right, exactly. Like, and some people, I've often felt that way because I was born in Pakistan, even though I grew up in London and Montreal, and I'm a Canadian and an American and a British citizen and Pakistani, obviously, in a time when they were burying baby girls alive, and that's why my name means treasure, because they didn't bury me, and blah, 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 blah. And I could tell that story, and then but it's a story. It's not me. I liked in your book at one point you said, you realized this, you came to this realization, you said, Cate Montana was a short story of the mind. I liked that. I read that, and that's how I feel about my stuff. It's like, it's stuff. I mean, I am not defined by someone who was born in Pakistan or whatever, I am, but you can use your person. I think if you let the ego go amok, it can be like a bull in a china store. It'll just...
Oh, absolutely. And, and he who shall not be named, Donald Trump, is a perfect, explicit example of an ego out of control that doesn't know it's an ego. Right. He thinks he's it. There have been, and I think there's probably stages in everybody's life. God knows when I was working in network television, traveling the world, working in a guy's career, making lots of money back in the 70s, I thought I was it. I thought I was hot stuff.
Well,
and the sun rose and set on my what. So my ego at that point was very, very immature and very selfish, very self-oriented. It was all about me, my, have.
Right, exactly.
Do.
Right. But that I think is an excellent point, Kate, because really honestly, I think most people in their 20s or when they're younger, the universe does revolve around them because they are growing spiritually, mentally, in many ways. But this man is 70 years old.
Exactly.
So.
And he's certainly not alone in the world, still self-aggrandizing, even at his age, thinking that he's it. We live in a world that's very oriented towards self-improvement. I mean, I bet you've seen a few self-improvement articles in the course of your life.
Oh,
yes. And really, and how do we get self-esteem and how do we feel better about ourselves? We're a very self-oriented society. And right now at the level of conscious development, we're very focused on looking good as a way of feeling good about ourselves, being sexy and attractive and beautiful and young and having lots of money and nice cars and big houses and taking great vacations. And but that's all hung on the hanger of the individual isolated ego that really hasn't grown up. And it is still really kind of frightened. And because essentially where the ego comes from? The ego comes from our bodies, our senses. Our eyes, ears, nose, skin boundary, everything gives us the message that I am alone. I'm separate from you.
Right.
And that's a really scary, if we look at it, that's a really scary place to be coming from.
Right.
But since we've been coming from that place ever since we popped out of the birth canal, I mean, this is where the ego comes from, is when we're first born, our senses give us this tidal wave of information that says, I am, isolated standalone unit. My skin stops here and my teddy bear's out there and mommy and daddy are out there and somehow I've got to get the bottle or the breast and the milk and it's all out there. And so we have two big messages that this is the foundation of the ego. I am physical. It's very obvious when I open my eyes and look around. Yeah, I live in a physical world, and there's a boundary between me and the rest of the world. Right. The second message is, I am separate. Now, this is so unconscious. This is the old saw about how do you describe water to the fish swimming in the ocean. That's exactly our. We go, what is the ego? And it's our sense of self. Well, what is that? And the sense of self is based in the message, I am physical and I am alone and separate and isolated from the rest of the world. And it is such an unconscious message we've been living ever since we got spit into the world that we're not even aware of it anymore. It's just the way it is.
Right.
But, quantum physics and mystics for thousands of years have been telling us, holding up a flag, waving it, going, hold on. It's not really the way it is. It's just the way it appears to be. Yeah. But we view life through a glass darkly, and our senses take us on a carnival ride. Right. And they lie to us because the essential nature of life is union.
Right.
Quantum physics has proven that, and I know you know all of that information, and probably most of your listeners are aware of that information. But we've got this 24/7 unconscious message pounding through us.
Right.
Every waking moment of our lives, I am physical and I am separate. And that's what we've got to learn to move beyond and evolve beyond. That's what Donald Trump needs to learn about and move beyond and evolve beyond. And that's why I ended up writing the book, because I looked at the world we've got nowadays. And we're so frightened. We're trashing the environment. We're killing ourselves. We're vastly outstripping our ability to manage our own technology and our own scientific achievements. And, we're like little 4-year-old brats with nuclear bombs. And if we don't wake up to what we're doing and why we're still 4-year-old brats and learn the bigger picture, then it's not a pretty picture. So that's why I wrote the book. It's like, oh my God, we've got to get a handle on what we think we are and understand what the ego is and educate ourselves, and really become expanded beings.
Right, exactly.
I
think that there has to be a shift in consciousness. And one of the first things I learned from a guru 100 years ago was, if you can see it, if you can touch it, if you can taste it, if you can feel it, it's not reality. And so I've been doing this a long time, and also along with that, you're not your body. You're not who you think you are. You're not that story.
No,
right.
Exactly. And it's so interesting because, like you, I spent 35 years on the spiritual path, and I have to say, Servet, if you ask me nowadays, gee, Kate, are you on the spiritual path? I would say no. Mm-hmm. And if you ask me, Kate, well, you are a spiritual person, aren't you? I would say, you know what, Servet, I'm not a spiritual person any longer.
Well, good. Explain that.
I will. Well, it goes back to what you said about, if you can see it, smell it, touch it, taste it, it's not real. Mm-hmm. I've come to the understanding that it's real in the sense that we are engaging a reality. We are engaging an experience. Mm-hmm. In that regard, it's very, very real. If you walked up to me and slugged me in the stomach, it would doggone hurt.
Right.
Don't tell me that's not real. What the point is, what the deeper truth to that kind of statement is my belief that it's physical is only a belief, and that's not really real. My belief that I'm separate from the tabletop and my computer sitting right here in front of me and my phone and my glass of water, my sensory perceptions that I'm separate from all of those things, that's what's not real.
Right, exactly. That's
you see the difference. You see the difference.
I do, yes. And that's key to having fulfillment in your life, or enlightenment, or transpersonal mindset. Well, you differentiated between the two. You say that transpersonal place that you want to be where you are, I think, are you?
Yes.
Is different than good. No, so, and be honest, and is different than enlightenment.
Oh God, yes.
Okay, so explain that to people, because most people don't know the difference. Or they
absolutely, and I'm surprised that I'm surprised how many people actually even have heard the words transpersonal consciousness, because it's not a common understanding in the world. Mm-hmm. I started this spiritual path way back in the 80s, and I went at it with a vengeance. I'm a type A lean-in personality, and so I quickly understood that enlightenment was what I needed to achieve, because enlightenment was the state of all-knowing bliss. It was the peace that passes all understanding. It was, I would understand everything. All the answers would be mine about who I was and what life was for and what the hell this is all about. So, man, I went after enlightenment big time, and I left my job in network television, and I rented a one-room cabin in the middle of nowhere in the North Georgia mountains for $25 a month, and I meditated my ass off for 6 years in isolation.
Wow. Well, you also traveled, though, didn't you? Didn't you also go to India and? In later years, yeah, but the early years, I just went within. I took it really, really seriously. Mm-hmm. And then when I ran out of money, I became a journalist so that I could freelance and write articles and write stories from home, and and interview people over the phone, so that I could stay home and meditate. So my whole life for 17 years was completely designed around my spiritual pursuits, my meditation practice. And I mean, I would meditate 12, 15, sometimes 24 hours a day, and just take a brief break for a potty break. But be that as it may, my point is, about 17 years in, I remember, and here's the big watershed moment. I came downstairs at 4 a.m., looked at my meditation mat, and I just couldn't do it. I was exhausted. I couldn't do one more frickin' mudra, mantra, light one more incense stick. Mm-hmm. It was just, and so I just flopped down on my meditation pillow, and I just said, screw it. Mm-hmm. And I let it all go. I didn't try to do anything. And I just closed my eyes, and I totally just gave the hell up. Well, you surrendered, basically.
I surrendered genuinely for the first time in my life.
That's amazing.
And it was amazing, because Cate Montana disappeared.
Yes. That's what happens.
There was just this sense of this amazing clarity and awareness of life, existence, and what I call the I am presence. But, even that's a separation statement. So all I can say is I was aware I am. And it was beautiful, and it was totally blissful. And then, however long later, a couple hours later, when the dendrites and the neurons started firing the pattern of my Cate Montana personality, the moment I opened my eyes, Servette, that's when Cate Montana came back.
Oh, yes.
Because immediately my senses were giving me the separation physical story, and instantly my whole the neurons, the firing pattern in my brain, and all of Kate's stories was just right there, and that's who I was again. So I spent years bouncing back and forth between the ego state and the non-ego state of transcendence. And I couldn't reconcile the two, and it drove me freaking nuts. And, I mean, I just couldn't understand it. I called it the two realities. Because in that state, it was very obvious that I am forever and ever, I am, unlimited, boundless, singular unity, was reality. And then, of course, then there was the Cate Montana show.
Right, exactly.
So eventually, that's how I stumbled on the whole transpersonal, was when I was writing the book, The E Word. And because we're taught that we're either supposed to be enlightened. We're taught we're supposed to be enlightened. We're supposed to wake up. But the thing that the conundrum, and here's finally I'm answering your question about the difference between transpersonal awareness and enlightenment, is in the enlightened state, there's nobody home to be enlightened. There's no one left to enjoy being liberated. Cate Montana's gone.
Right.
So all there was is liberation, but there's nobody home to appreciate it and go, oh my God, I did it! That's all gone, because that's the illusion, that there was anybody home to begin with to accomplish anything. And it's the biggest cosmic joke in the world. But I kept bouncing back and forth between the enlightened state and the very unenlightened state of Cate Montana. So it wasn't until I started writing the E Word that my psychology background kicked in, and I went, oh my God, there's actually a middle ground where we can be ourselves and still have the ego structure sufficient to function as a human being, but we're no longer locked into the prison, the lie of the perception that I am separate from the rest of the world and you and anybody else. The ego is finally put in its place because my perspective, my ego perspective, has been expanded. Not inflated, oh, look at me, I'm so great.
Right.
Expanded to be inclusive, which means I've broken down the barriers of this lie, this illusion my senses give me that I'm separate from everybody else and life. And so this is the state that people really hunger for. This is what people don't want to die. Enlightenment is death. I mean, I can't get it. I can't say it any more bluntly. People are not looking to die. People are looking to be happy, fulfilled, feel connected, feel secure, abundant, ecstatic, all these wonderful things. The ego makes it very difficult, since the ego is so insecure, makes it very difficult for us to experience. So I was really happy to realize that there's actually a middle ground where we can be and have and do all those things we dream of, and essentially bring forth a heaven on earth that's been promised. But it's not the enlightened state.
Well,
most people who when the veil drops and the ego drops, they leave their body, and that's I
don't think you actually die. I don't think we ever die, but I think that what happens is you'll shift to another state of consciousness.
The personality certainly dies, because once the dendrites in the brain stop firing and there's no neuron pathways, and the story is seen to be the puff of smoke illusion that it actually is, there's simply I am.
Right.
The all in all.
Right. And then you, I think, go to another conscious state, like in another realm somewhere, or dimension, whatever you want to call it.
You got to watch your languaging, Servette. I don't go to another realm at all. I am gone. There is no I. Not I personal, not I Cate Montana, with Cate Montana's memories and thoughts about how she wants to do this, that, and the other thing. That's gone.
But you as a spiritual conscious being.
I beg your pardon?
Do you think then because I believe, and this is a good discussion, I believe that our consciousness can't die. It just will evolve to the next level of whatever.
Absolutely.
It's going to, okay, that's what I meant.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But it's not the consciousness called Cate Montana. It's consciousness.
No. That Cate Montana is just a temporary minor thing to help you evolve, I believe.
Well, here we go again, because if you are I am, and you're the all in all, and you're an unchanging eternal being that already is everything that ever was and ever will be, there is no evolving in that place.
Well, then, that's that old saying of you can't possibly get any more perfect than you already are right now, just as you are. Because as a spiritual being, we are perfect right now, right this second, just exactly the way we are, right? But
absolutely,
right.
Yes.
But
and I no longer, and the reason, and to answer a previous question, the reason I no longer consider myself a spiritual person is because I've dropped the duality. There is only spirit.
Right.
And to say I am a spiritual person is this subconscious attempt by the ego to clean up its act and to dress itself up in spiritual garb, thinking, and here's the implied belief, thinking I'm really a human being, thinking I'm really a person. So to improve my personhood, I'm going to become spiritual. You see what I'm saying?
Right. I totally understand that. I get it. And that's why I think that, because the law of attraction and all of that became very popular with The Secret, which was almost 10 years ago. But it was like, people were, to me, if you're trying to manifest something, if you're desiring, you want to bring something into reality, you are by definition saying you lack something and you probably won't get it. So people didn't understand why it wasn't working. They were doing all these positive things and positive thinking, which by the way is very stressful to think positive 24 hours a day, and then not getting what they want or not changing. Their life wasn't changing. So let's talk about that a little bit, because that's what people want to be fulfilled and happy, like you said. They don't want a blissful state that's 24/7 and that's that. They want to be fulfilled and happy in this world, in this lifetime, right? So how do you how would you address that subject that I just brought up?
Manifestation?
Yeah.
The problem I've discovered with personal manifestation is in the word personal.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Is if you're saying you're lacking something, or
Well, yes, absolutely. But let's not get hung. That's not actually the reason why it enters in, but it's not the real reason why manifestation often or usually doesn't work, or only works after ages of time and comes in fragments and stuff.
Right.
It's because I'm confused. Cate Montana, ego, living in this world, it's normal to have desires and to want things. And yes, of course, that means I don't have it, but I'm not going to play head games with myself. It's like, no, I do not have that beautiful house in Bali that I want. And so this is the whole point of the ego, and this is what's so fun, is that it's okay to want stuff. It's okay to be human. And part of being human and having an ego is desiring things and having new experiences. If we didn't want new experiences, we wouldn't change and evolve. Now, the trick with manifestation is, the problem with manifestation is that we are unconsciously confused about who we are. When you say, I'm going to manifest the house in Bali, unconsciously, I think I'm talking about Cate Montana. Cate Montana has to manifest this house in Bali. So what do? I cut out pictures of houses in Bali, and I plastered all over my bathroom mirror, and I put pictures of houses of Bali on my refrigerator, and I have a screensaver of the beautiful house in Bali, because I'm trying to train my ego mind to create this house in Bali. But it's not Cate Montana who's going to manifest the house in Bali. It's I am. It's life. It's it's source intelligence. It's spirit. It's God, whatever you want to call it, the life force. That, when we put our ego intent into that quantum field and we lay that heartfelt desire in, and the more emotions we can bring to a desire, the visual pictures and screensavers and vision boards and stuff like that are all very well and good, but the mental aspect of aligning your thoughts with what you want to create is not anywhere near as important as your emotional investment. To feel what it will feel like to actually have that beautiful home in Bali. And that, putting that vibration, that frequency into the quantum field is what assists life, the law of attraction, to bring that to me. But I'm not the one actually doing the manifesting. So my big job is to get the heck out of the way.
Well, yeah, exactly. You make perfect sense.
That's nothing new.
No, but that's because you have to be that I am. You have to be in that beingness of that which you wish to create, or you can't either, or you may get it, but you'll sabotage it. The other thing about that too is if you are in the beingness of it and you get out of the way, it might be a house in Costa Rica because Source knows that that's actually better for you than Bali. But you wouldn't know that because you're just posting pictures of Bali everywhere, so you kind of sometimes getting out of your way. Buddha said sometimes not getting what you want is the best thing that could happen to you.
Absolutely.
So sometimes we don't even know. But if you're creating with Source and from that I am consciousness state, then it will work no matter what. It may not work exactly the way you thought, but it may work better than you thought too.
Absolutely. And there's no way we can do anything but manifest from Source because Source is what manifests.
Right.
Our job is simply to get clear on what we want and to let it go.
Right.
And show up. I mean, it's just like I can have the dream of being an opera singer, but if I don't, get off my ass and go out and get singing lessons and learn and train my voice and then, set myself into auditions and stuff, like I'm never going to become an opera singer.
No, exactly. Of course. I mean, I always used to say, look, if there's $1 million sitting on the floor in front of you, you still got to get up off your pretty ass and pick it up. You can't. It's not going to fall on you. Yeah, you still have to go get it. So okay. So now I'm going to open the line. It's already halfway through the show, so I am going to open the lines, and then I want to talk about. I told you I could talk to you for hours, Cate. So I'm going to open the lines. If anybody has any questions about how their ego is getting in their way, how they're not getting how they're not fulfilled, you have a great story about Sally Jane. You keep bringing up in the book over and over, and it's kind of like I liked it because you said that her mind was on speed dial. And somewhere along the way, she lost herself. And I know there are listeners out there that feel that way. So if you would like to talk to Cate about that, call in 949-313-8880. Cate would love to talk to you, and I'd love it if you call in. Cate, explain what consciousness really is, because we keep bringing it up. But let's get your definition.
I wish I could actually give you a concise one-sentence synopsis, but there's different ways of approaching that question. Yeah. At the most fundamental level, at the most primary level, consciousness is all that is.
Yeah.
Everything is consciousness. We often use the word spirit. Quantum physics and biochemistry are combining and are discovering that at the very, very tiniest foundation of creation is actually energy and information. And which is another way of using the word consciousness. It's energy information. It's life intelligence. It's consciousness. And so everything is made of consciousness. Now, so then we talk about, talk about it in human terms. Where is your consciousness, which we mean our thoughts. Where are your thoughts focused? What level of consciousness are you operating at? In other words, what level of thought and demonstration are you actualizing in your life experience? That's another way of talking about consciousness. When I talk about the ego and transpersonal awareness and enlightenment, if we're talking about the ego, we're talking about a story that's made of consciousness. Transpersonal awareness is another stepping stone between that isolated story of thinking I'm all alone and vulnerable in the world and why I have to build walls and go to war and barricade myself. That's the story of that level of consciousness. And then there's the next evolved level of consciousness, which begins to break down those walls and barricades those illusions that we're separate from life and one another, and that's the transpersonal. And then when the entire fabric of the story, the illusion of the self and the world disappears, then there's the state of consciousness called enlightenment. Mm-hmm. And it's all one thing. Just variations on a theme, if you will.
Right. Right. Well, it's life. To me, consciousness is awareness as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love, you did talk quite a bit in your book about The Matrix. You know, that's such a great movie. I think if you haven't seen it out there, see it. And if you haven't seen it in a while, see it after you've listened to Cate talk, because it takes on a different meaning, you know?
It surely does. I mean, you know, going back to what you said earlier about, you know, this world not being physical, it really isn't.
No.
So we're left with, and this is one of the things I loved about writing the book, is I could do exercises and bring up examples, because, you know, for thousands of years we've been chewing on this whole thing that, you know, Jesus and Buddha says, you know, you're one with the Father, and your brother and sister are as one, and I am awake. You know, we're like, well, I can't get my handle on this, because I think I'm Cate Montana, and my senses tell me I'm alone and I'm physical. I don't understand what you're really trying to tell me, Jesus. So I'm all one. I don't get it. So it really helps. It really helps to have the visuals. And one of the best visuals I found, and I put it in the book, I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't, was from a movie called I Heart Huckabees, where Dustin Hoffman plays an existential detective, Bernard Jaffe, and he's trying to explain consciousness and the fabric of force intelligence, God, if you will, to a young man. And so he grabs this blanket off the back of a chair, and he holds it out flat, and then he sticks his finger up from underneath, and so there's this peak in the blanket. And he goes, okay, this is you. And he sticks another finger up under the blanket, and there's another peak. He says, and this is me. And he keeps sticking his fingers up through the blanket, you know, saying, well, this is the Eiffel Tower, and this is your dog, and this is a hamburger, and this is an orgasm. And he goes on and on and on. And he says, but look, it's just appearances. It's just peaks in the blanket. It's really all just blanket. So I've found that when I, you know, and part of what I wanted to accomplish in the book was to help people move beyond the illusions of the ego that says, I am separate, I am physical, and get to this quantum state of transpersonal awareness where we begin to see the truth. It's all blanket. And so having the visual of the blanket is one way to do it. And do you want me to talk about an exercise people can do to help?
Absolutely. No, sure. Go ahead.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So if we want to get a handle on reality, we are all one, then one of the things I do to be able to see the blanket is when I'm walking or when I'm in the store or when I'm driving my car, and I remember to do it, you know, I'll see something when I'm walking, like a beautiful tree or a flower or a blue heron, and I acknowledge them. My heart sings, and you go, oh my God, you're so beautiful. And then I remember, oh, wait a minute, that's really me in another form. That's another appearance in the blanket. And so I acknowledge, I go, wow, you're so beautiful. And then I go, wow, I am so beautiful. And when I bow to that tree or that flower or that bird or that other person, I mean, I do this, you know, I'm acknowledging that extension of the is that shows up as us. You know, and when I meet people, when somebody walks away, you know, I wave goodbye, and I literally wave goodbye mentally and go, bye me. That's just me in another skin suit, in another appearance, in another story. Right. And so these are little exercises that people can do to start with. What we have to do is train the brain and remind ourselves what the truth is on a daily basis, despite what our senses tell us on a daily basis. That's That's the whole discipline.
And that comes through awareness. You just have to be aware of what you're thinking and saying and doing and feeling and that's the meaning. That's what namaste means. When they say namaste, it means the light in me acknowledges the light in you. It's like we're one, so the true meaning of that.
Yeah. But the beautiful part of it is that we have to not go on automatic, and then we just think namaste, and I'm a spiritual person, and I do this, and I do that. And then all of a sudden, what we actually concretize is not breaking through the illusions, but we just add layers to the illusion. I realized to my shock and dismay that, all of my being a spiritual person, and I had a lot of rules that went with being a spiritual person. I had to act a certain way, and I could say certain things, and I couldn't say certain things, and I was supposed to be vegetarian. That didn't last long.
I tried.
There's some people that wear different colors on certain days of the week. I mean, there's all this stuff. And I realized at a certain point, Servette, that what I was just doing was adding more story to my already overburdened sense of who I was, which is a story and not even real.
Right.
I was just adding more layers to my ego. Now I had a spiritual ego to deal with on top of my regular human ego.
Right. And at one time that was being pulled, there's almost like a spiritual consumerism at some point. Do you know what I mean? It became like the thing and that was just I had a friend of mine tell me, well, I wear black too much or something, and I was like, okay, whatever. And she said, well, that just screws up your energy. And I was like, if you believe that will be true for you, but I don't. So hey, I'm not.
I'm sitting here in a black shawl and black pants right now. So yes.
Yeah, I'm wearing black pants too. So I mean, it's just it can get very people can get very caught up in that too. Especially religion. Religion can do that to you. So it's all a question of you finding your truth in the end, and that truth is we are all the blanket. Really?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That's what you're trying. Yeah.
And that's not most of our truth, but and that's the big leap and advantage between the story of religion and the story of spirituality. At least in the story of spirituality, we've acknowledged that ultimate separation game we used to play with God out there and us miserable wretches down here on planet Earth. At least we've vaulted beyond that illusion, and we're starting to include God as, spirit as us. That is a huge evolution in our thinking.
And I'm glad about that. But there's everything has a bit of truth, because I've got the kingdom of heaven is within you. I am that I am. When Moses asked God who he was, it was like, I am that I am. It's like there's a lot, everybody got something from somebody. It's like there's a lot of connecting truths in all of these, not only just spiritual practices, but in the religions as well. Someone said to me, well, where does it say in the Bible to meditate? And I said, well, it's be still and know that ye are God. That means meditate. And they were like, oh.
Go into your closet.
Yeah. And I
go
can
into your
find
closet.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
I can find it in almost every religion. I can find it in almost every personal improvement, transformational practice out there. Be still. Meditate. Let's talk about that, because it is like everything I've ever studied will encourage you to sit in silence at some point.
I agree. That's the foundation. Granted, meditation was my path, and I really, despite I've had 3 spiritual teachers in my life, and mostly what I did was just sit and look within and ask myself the who am I question. I did that. That was really my practice. And that was what cracked me open eventually. And that was just a simple sitting down, closing my eyes, and looking within. And so there's nothing that can really beat that practice. And And just because I spent thousands of hours meditating doesn't mean somebody else needs to.
No, I don't. I truly believe that as well. I think that even if you meditate, I think 5 minutes a day even can change your life. But 15 certainly, and I don't think, or 20 if you can. But I mean, I don't think you need to like twist yourself up like a pretzel and light incense and candles, and you can just I mean, I meditate before I get out of bed in the morning, and I can tell you something, if I don't, I am screwed up by noon. I mean, I
understand.
I'm not myself, and I'll wonder, because I rarely ever miss it, even if it's, you know, if I even have to put it, but if I do, I am just not the same all day.
Yeah, because you haven't grounded yourself in your true being.
That's right. And I do that before I put a foot out of bed.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the things that I wrote the book for was to point out to people that, you know, we don't have to do this big song and dance routine to know God, for lack of a better way of putting it. Right. Let me take you through another really simple exercise. You know, we don't have to do the candles and the incense and the 1,000 different, you know, amazing retreats and spend all this money on whatever we spend it on. Knowing who we really are is as simple as write a list of all the things you think you are and precede everything with the words I am. For example, I am a woman, I am Caucasian, I am a spiritual person, I am a Leo, I am a resident of Washington State, I am a writer, you know, whatever your I ams are, write them down on a piece of paper. And then say those things out loud and pay attention to the feeling in your body. Pay attention to the energy. When you say, I am a writer, or I am a real estate agent, or I am a truck driver, you know, what's the energy with the story that we tag I am with? And after you read this long list out loud, paying attention to the energy, at the end, just say, I am.
Right. Lovely.
There's a moment, Servette, that we can tap into. And it's that a moment, that 2 seconds of spaciousness and emptiness and peace before all the words in our head rushes in and tell us how stupid this is. You know?
Well,
that one moment at the end of I am. With no story attached. Now, that is a glimpse. That is who we really are. In that moment, you're there.
Right.
That's it. Now, once we start experiencing that, it's a process of acknowledging that beautiful, spacious emptiness with no story to it is the truth of our being. And just see if we can extend those moments. Don't make a big sweat deal out of it. But just become aware. Do that practice. Become aware. I am. Wow. It's amazingly potent.
I'm sure it's powerful. I'm sure it is. Yeah, I do that. I don't say I am. But during the day when the world gets nutty, because it does, what I do is I switch from a human being to a being human. Like I become the watcher. I become the, I become the observer is what I'm trying to say. And that just shifts me out of the whole physical thing. You know, it takes
Yes, it does.
You know, that's what I do. We're running out of time. We have 10 minutes.
Oh my
So if anybody has a quick question, I'm going to give you a final chance to talk to Kate. You know, then 20 people are going to email me tomorrow and said, well, I had a question, but 949-313-8880. We don't have much time, so if you do have a question, call in. So, Kate, I want you to tell everybody how to find you and the E word, which came before the F word. That's how
they can go to my website, which is www.catemontana.com. And it's Kate with a C, but if you spell it with a K, it'll get you there anyway.
Oh, good.
And you can find out about the book and I am beginning to do retreats. And oh man, the book has really kicked me in the you know what. And talk about having to drop your ego. I've really understood in the past couple of months since the book came out that now it's time for me to drop my identity and my story of being a writer. It's not that I won't write anymore. It's that the book is just really shoving me into the teaching mold. It's been really scary.
Oh, well, I know that feeling. I felt that way years ago when I've published 3 books with Llewellyn Worldwide Publishers, and I felt that way too in the beginning. And then I really got to love that aspect of it. It was a different. Yeah. It actually wasn't that different because I'm a writer. I was a journalist too. So, but I then went into book. But it took. What I loved about the teaching part of it is that the more I taught, the more I learned. You know, that's part of it too. So something's pulling you in that direction. So you're going to start doing retreats?
Yes. And long-term coaching, spiritual coaching.
Good.
To be able to get people, to give people tools and the opportunity to move, to get a handle on what this ego structure is. We think we know what it is because we've got words for it. We can talk about the ego and we can talk about this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, because we've got the language for it, we think we understand it, but we're still fish usually swimming in the water going, what water? I know there's water, but they don't really know what the water even is. So the point is to have the experiences to be able to move into that transpersonal, more unified state. That's the really exciting thing. And there's so many tools that people can use and different technologies, from brain mapping to flotation tanks to, I'm just lining up a whole bunch of people and technologies that give people the opportunity to experience these unified states of consciousness.
I hope that, I'm not sure how you're going to approach the teaching aspect of it, but I hope, it's just my thought, that you incorporate the quantum mechanics of it all as well, the field, that they understand how, because then that's where everything. See, my whole message is be you to the full, which is what's really beautiful, because when you're being, my message is to help people uncover who they really are, because when you find the truth out of who you really are, everything is easy after that. You manifest easily because you're not trying to manifest anymore. You get the relationships you want because you're not trying to make them. You're just being you. And the more you are, the easier. So I kind of hope that you keep the quantum part of it all in there as well, because that's important, I think.
Absolutely, Servette.
Good.
That's
you're going to be great.
Who we really are. We really are these quantum beings. We're not these physical skin bodies at all.
That's right. So, once they get that message, and that's your mission now, to teach that and help people grow into that. And it's Cate Montana with a C. It's CateMontana.com, right?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah,
and the e-word can be found on Amazon and IndieBound and bookstores, you name it.
Barnes and Noble and all of that. Good. Now, do you think you'll write another book? What are your future plans? Just retreats and teaching and?
I have so many books on the horizon, Servette. So many books. It's like a string of pearls wanting to land.
Oh, I know that feeling. The hardest part about that is you have to just do, because it's easy to I'll just write that one, but no, I'll stop writing that one. I'll write that one, and then you have to kind of just no, just write one book at a time and go from there. Yeah. So. I tried for 7 years not to. I succeeded not writing this book, The E-Word, for 7 years, and then finally in December of 2014, Spirit just knocked me into my chair and said, "You will write what you know about the ego and enlightenment." And I'm like, "Oh God, okay." Well, God is right. That's who did it. It's but that's how it should be, because I know sometimes when it's not coming out and I'm not there, it's not the right time either. It's not the right moment, or it's not the right, I need to evolve a little bit more here or there or whatever. And then when I sit down to do it, when I get knocked sideways like you did with the e-word book, it comes out differently. It comes out better, so I know I don't fight that.
Oh, yeah.
Good. So there's
this book definitely channeled through me. It was like to this day this book is my guru. I have to say I just keep tapping back into it and going, wow, okay, yeah, Now the trick is to live it.
Well, are you living it?
Yes, and I still have my human moments. Well, I'm going through this meltdown of my whole writing author persona right now. The past couple of months, it's been a drubbing. It's been really, really hard. I had no idea, and then moving into the hows and the wherefores of marketing and setting up. None of which I really want to do. I don't want to market anything.
No writer does. No, none of us writers want to do that part. Trust me. It's like, what? I want to sit in a room and just leave me alone, and I'll just sit here and write for years.
and I love to talk. I mean, I do a lot of public speaking, and that's great. And people can find out events and where I'm going to be teaching and talking. It's on my website.
Okay, great, Kate. Thank you.
Yeah, but it's a wrestling match still. Sometimes it just is like, wow. My humanity just. Whoa.
That's life, or you wouldn't be here. Right. So
that's
right.
Exactly it, Servette.
Right.
So being grateful with that is the whole point.
It's true. I could talk to you for hours, as I said, and we'll have to have you back on to do that. But thank you, Kate, for spending Sunday night with me when it's your time, and I appreciate it. And what a great interview. And it's called The E-Word, Ego, Enlightenment, and Other Essentials. Cate Montana is the author, and you can find anything you need to know about her on CateMontana.com, Kate with a C. Thank you very much, Kate, for joining me tonight. I appreciate it.
Servette, thank you. I really enjoyed it.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. What a great interview. I just had so much fun with her. I could talk to her for another hour and a half, at least, maybe more. But it's time to go. We're going to sign off in a couple of minutes here. So I just want to remind everybody that what I'm doing is on ServetteHassan.com, ServetteHassan.com. All of my books are on there, including my last one, The Life in Transition, that won a nice international book award, and some others. And it's on there too. We're all transitioning, so that can't not help. So also, if you miss a show or you want to hear this show again, it'll be up on my YouTube channel, the Servette Hassan channel on YouTube. I am going to start blogging again, and I said that before, but because I stopped in January, but I have some new ideas and taking a new direction. Also going to be doing online seminars and things like that in the future. But you could check out my website. Everything will be up there soon. It's a lot of changes going on in my life right now. So I'm not really focused on blogging, but I'll get back to it as soon as I can. And I'd love to hear from you guys. Like I said, this show is for you. I really want to hear from you. So email me, Servette@ServetteHassan.com. I would love to hear from you. And what else can I tell you? Be you to the full, because that's what we were talking about today. It's all about consciousness. If you don't raise your consciousness, you will not change. And to change, that's what it takes in any way you find that. And it's all about uncovering your truth, as we talked about today. And be you to the full is what's really beautiful. And that is what makes life happen. Shit still happens. Oh, did I say that? Stuff still happens, but it's easier to handle. It's easier to deal with. It's not so challenging when you know that you are of source and that you can manifest what you need, because you're not trying to, because you're just being you. So take care. I have a great show next week. His name is Master Charles Cannon. He was in Mumbai. He was teaching there when the terrorist attacked. One of his students was killed. That was an amazing story. It was called, and he wrote a book about it called Forgiving the Unforgivable. And we will be talking to Master Charles Cannon about living an awakened life, the lessons of love. Next week, he's amazing and he's really hard to get a hold of, and I'm glad I did. Thank you very much for joining me. Be you to the full, because that's what's really beautiful. Take care. Good night.